We're live now.
Hi, everybody. Good day from around the world. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host for another edition of VC TV. For those that are just tuning in, first and foremost, a big thank you. We love hearing from you. We love that you tune in. We've got a lot to unpack, but here on VC TV, what we do every day, bring investors from around the world, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to talk to you about what's happening in different industries, trends, along with technologies and regions around the world so that you can get educated. If you're an investor, you get the both macro and micro view of all of this to make the best decisions and also get questions answered you might have around what's happening in the world or around various technologies. If you're a founder, you get all the insights on how we think as investors, how you can be successful, not only talking with us and raising capital, but also in your industry or ideas around new technologies and potentially new products and services. All around, this is a great show for anyone that's tuning in, and we are very thankful that you are. Now, with that being said, here on VC TV, with the audience, we are live, so feel free at any time to drop us questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you in the chat box. I'll do my best as moderator to see what I can ask in real time. If not, we'll save it to the end, or we're all available 24/7 on social media and be happy to hear from you and continue the conversation as well. To the investors, if you'd like to be on our show, whether it's an episode like today here at VC TV, where we're talking about specific technologies, or generally of what you're thinking and what you're seeing in the industry, reach out. Myself, Maria, and the entire LA Token team here at VC TV would love to hear from you and would love to have you on as our guest. Founders, if you would like to pitch us, you'd like to get the chance to interact, get our thoughts, hear some feedback like Andrew will get to do here in the second half of the show today, reach out. Again, we'd love to have you on. Also, a big shout out to Holland Valley again for supplying today's coffee. It is fueling this episode of VC TV. It's going to be a fun one. Also, thank you to Maria and to the entire LA Token team for making VC TV possible and bringing it to your screen, whatever device, wherever you may be, anywhere in the world today. With that being said, let's get started. Here on VC TV, we've already talked about one of the two biggest industries that have been transforming, that play a role in today. Yesterday's episode was about fintech and blockchain. Fintech, the entire transformation or digitization of the financial industry and what's happening, and blockchain. We got into artificial intelligence. We got into AR. We got into VR, augmented virtual realities. Well, guess what? Today, we're bringing that full circle as we look at advertising and digital media. What's happening in these spaces? What has changed? What hasn't? And where do things go in the next year plus? We know that a lot has changed in the past 6 months with more people staying at home, more people using devices, more people online, more people, more eyes, more platforms, more attention. What does that look like for the next 12 months? What does that mean for you and your businesses? What does that mean for you as investors looking at making bets in this space? Well, let's find out. With that being said, let's welcome each and every one of our investors. Again, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. Let's go through everybody, Brady Bunch style. Marcos, it's been a minute since you've been back on the show, so I'm going to kick it off with you. Welcome back. Little intro and background for everyone here joining in today on VC TV.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be back here. My name is Marcos Lima. I represent Virtual Equity Partners. We are a private equity that primarily invests our own capital, but we also represent other investors as well. And our focus is primarily in disrupting businesses in beauty. And the approach that we do is really a very hands-on work in partnership with founders, where we can contribute, taking the best of both of good platforms, but also bringing top-notch expertise from global companies as well, from our partners, and helping these companies to develop. At the moment, we are investing in 2 other companies of about $30 million, all focused in the US, and the primary markets that we do our business in the US and China.
Wonderful, and welcome back. There's a lot we're going to talk about today on the cross-border side between the US and China, but Asia as a whole. From the advertising and digital media side, there's a ton happening. And if anything, Asia has been leading, arguably, in some of those spaces. But Marcos, welcome back. We're going to get there. Dan, welcome back to the show as well. It's a pleasure. I want to welcome you, give you a chance to do a little intro, a little background as well. You're muted right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, Dan Malvin. I'm a general partner with 4490 Ventures. We manage about $100 million, classic early stage venture capital firm based out of the Midwest. My partner's in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm in Chicago. We invest nationwide. I have a long history going back in ad tech. You know, some may call me one of the OGs there from, I led the formation round, what now we call seed round, although then we called it Series A in ComScore. So the founders came to me and my partners at the time with nothing more than PowerPoint slides and some ideas. And we ended up backing them. That first round was $9 million for the first round. And you know, we formed the company at that time with that. And then it went on and became ComScore. I also, speaking of Asia, I was the first non-ethnically Chinese investor in what is now SINA, SINA, you know, which was a pioneer in China. Yeah. And really all around digital media, ad tech at the time and I was walking the streets of Beijing in 1998. I'm not as aging myself there, I guess, but looking for opportunities. And I met all the founders of all the nascent Chinese internet companies at the time and settled on investing. We led the first institutional round in what became SINA. It's actually a merger of a company it was based in California and Beijing, and they merged, and that's what we invested in.
Wow. So you invested at the merger, right?
Yeah, at the merger, yeah. And it went from $1 million of revenue at the time of our investment to 5 years later, 200 million of revenue and 70 million of EBIT. It was a crazy ride. That was from, you know, that's when everything was cratering here in the US in 2000, 2001, 2002. And SINA just took off like a shot during that time. So, like I said, long history in ad tech. And then from those, I invested in various other things along the way but been around the industry for a while.
Wow, and that's right about the time the emerging markets, specifically in Asia, were really starting to come online in a big, aggressive way. You know, now we've got over 700 million. I don't remember the latest stat, but it's over 700 million that are connected and online just in China alone, out of 1.4 billion people, or almost 1.4. Look at Asia as a whole. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about India and what else is happening through Japan and Korea and some of the other emerging markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand. But that was a good time. Excited to hear more stories about that as well, Dan. So welcome back to the show. Definitely check out 4490 Ventures if you guys have the chance. But as we continue through, the man, the legend, the robot, the voice, Gary, welcome back to the show, the Grandmaster of AI. I got a good intro. Go ahead.
Hey, Dan, I think we have a mutual friend, Pihong Chen. I don't know if you know Pihong. Pihong is my mentor. And he helped me raise $6 million for one of the first e-commerce consulting companies that I founded out in Silicon Valley. So my friend's a very wealthy Chinese American, Taiwanese American businessman. And I think Dan knows him. Anyhow, so my name's Gary Fowler, and I've done 15 companies. The biggest exit I've had was I was on the original management team of Click Software, sold to Salesforce for a little over $1 billion in August. And I named the company and did all the sales, marketing, biz dev as a senior vice president. I also co-founded Yva.ai. Yva is one of the top 10 AI HR companies. I did it with David Yang out of Russia, actually lives in Silicon Valley. So just love this stuff. And so GSD is a venture studio. It's Get Shit Done Venture Studios. And I'm the co-founder of it. And our whole job is to curate incredible AI companies and get them to the level of $1 billion company. And I believe this is, as I've said many, many times, AI is the new electricity, and we're here to curate it and move it forward and make the life a little bit better. So anyhow, that's where we are. Thank you, Kyle.
Absolutely. And AI plays a very impactful role in the stuff we're talking about today, from advertising to digital media, the power and influence of data in driving some of those ad-based decisions or things that we're seeing. There's so much happening, both good, bad, and a little ugly, but nonetheless, there's a way to bring that all together, as we've talked about on previous episodes, and excited to unpack that. But last but not least, my man, all the way from the gaming industry, who we're going to talk so much about as well, and has a vision of where things are going from the AR side. Noble, welcome back to the show. Little intro and background.
Good to see you guys. My name is Noble Dracone. We have a firm called Dracone Capital Partners. We started about 4.5 years ago, focusing primarily on AR and the gamification of augmented reality. Since then, we've become tied with maccelerator.la, which focuses on pre-seed, seed, and Series A companies. And we're in the middle of a $40 million raise for the first venture fund for them. The great thing about Accelerator is it's global day one. So we get access to European companies. We have a relationship in South Korea as well as China. So we're really excited about the space on both AR, entertainment, gaming.
Wonderful. Well, with that said, guys, I want to dive right in as to what's all happening in the space. What have we seen really transform from, the past? I'll go decade as Dan dated all of us. So let's look at the past decade and what's happened in advertising and digital media to where we're going, because some things are really transforming very quickly. And it's not just due to the past 6 months. We are already on this aggressive scale, but more eyeballs have been on devices for more time periods than potentially ever at this point on a global scale. So looking back in the past decade, what's really changed dramatically from the advertising and digital media side? Dan, I'm kicking off with you, and we'll go around the room.
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on, right? There's so many. I will say that you almost have to separate digital media and ad tech. Digital media, the investable opportunities, again, from a early stage venture capital investor, we have had to think about them differently. Digital media was, so many forms and flavors and content plays and everything else. Ad tech, that was always investable. Ad tech almost became uninvestable for a period of time because, as I call it, the solar systems had formed around a few big stars, right? Facebook, Google, Microsoft around LinkedIn, Snap, a few of the others, that for a company, because as a venture capitalist, we look for things that can exit for $1 billion. What's happening was when an ad tech play got started to show promise, they'd be acquired for 100, 300 million, maybe, somewhere around there. Most of them, on the low end of that. They'd be before they could escape, just to finish the analogy, before they could achieve escape velocity and become really big independent companies, they would be acquired. So it was hard for us to invest in ad tech, but that is now changing. We made our first ad tech. I made our first ad tech investment in a long time, just recently in the last few months, because we're seeing enough differences that Google and Facebook and some of the others can't totally control and co-opt. Mm-hmm. So And so anyway, that's a little bit of the overview for us. So we're excited about the space again as investable opportunities.
And what are you seeing in terms of those new opportunities that are kind of coming to light, that's getting you really excited about this space? Because you're right, so much has happened and it gets picked up quickly by one of the big, big firms in the space, or big companies, tech company wise. What are you seeing that's changing that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the investment we made is in an area around location-based advertising that venues. The company's called Upshow, upshow.tv. So,
okay.
That is working with venue operator brand owners, which are physical, but also virtual relationships with their consumers, to in effect be a next generation ad server that is that takes into account physical context. And so, Google and Facebook cannot control that in a way they can the rest of the advertising world. And so that's why, we think it's an opportunity for them to really grow and achieve, escape velocity before someone else, because it's really the relationships they have with the owners of that trusted brand relationship envelope they have with consumers. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Noble, to you, I want to bring that over now, continuing that part of the conversation. But what further have you seen really transform? I mean, you have this background in gaming. We've talked a little bit about AR, which we're going to get to, but what are you seeing that's transformed a little bit, and maybe even a shorter time span in the past couple years, to Dan's point of opportunities outside of what, the big tech typically dominates and wipes away?
Yeah, and I think Dan really hit the nail on the head. It's ad tech and digital media, right? They're two different things. And so when we set out in the AR space, immediately one of our focuses was the entertainment industry. And we were slightly derailed because of what happened with COVID, but we created a whole entire geofencing model using augmented reality to enhance both the goods bought and purchased at concerts, and also to drive experiences at those concerts themselves, so that if you bought something online or offline somewhere else and then brought it to the concert, we would use geofencing and geolocation to activate it and then give you an AR experience at the venue that you're at. And so I think that the reality is, the forms of advertising are becoming more insidious. We talked about this early on, in which the product itself should have the advertising or the media. So far, and this has been it's so funny, for the last 4.5 years when we started this project in AR, our whole focus was to create this experience that no more product placement where you would sit a Coke can in a movie. Why not use the Coke can to display the movie? And you create the media in the product as opposed to doing the product placement. And so you can do a lot of cool things. When people think of augmented reality, I always think of it in a 3D format, but it also does 2D distribution. It allows for multiple layers of visualization. You don't have to always use QR codes. You can use visual. That's why I love when Gary talks about AI. We use visual science, and I've been using it for the last 5 years. So our focus has always been that there's a lot of ways to drive the advertising conversation directly to the consumer on just utilizing augmented reality and allow things to happen. I don't know if you guys saw, but Eminem at one point created these little mini shows, these little mini vignettes of cartoons that you could collect. And one of the use cases we said is, look, you could actually use AI or visual science to take certain M&Ms out of the bag and then display the commercial directly from the bag, and you can start separating the venue. So instead of display ads and going out to finding customers by third-party media, you can make your product the third-party media. And so I think that's really where the ad technology has to go, where the consumers are at. Particularly when there's so much inundation and third-party visualization, right? You're inundated from television to movie to Netflix. The OTT channels have exploded. Everyone and their uncle has one. So now, particularly just what I've seen in general is that the noise is just too much for people. And so by targeting them directly in the products they already buy, we really push the envelope in that space. And it's the same thing with video games. People are now starting to find product placement of products in the game itself. That's a huge transition. We've talked about this before, Kyle. I mean, that's a huge transition that people are really understanding that you have to go where the eyeballs are. And a lot of the other pixelization, ad retargeting, they're great in a subliminal way. But at the end of the day, you want to show that you're integrated with the interest of the consumer, and so that there's an alignment there. So there's just been a huge shift, where before the display ads were it, and now you've got to make everything integrated into the experience. And so people just expect more from their ads. I think it's almost Super Bowl Sunday every day. The ads have to be useful. They have to be something. They have to be entertaining. They have to be non-seen. It can't be just something that is telling people what to do. The call to action has to be a little bit more subtle.
It can't just be the ads of past, right? Where it's just like, hey, this is an advertisement. It needs to feel, as you said, more natural, more seamless into the experience that they're hosting. So whether you're watching a fashion show, for instance, like Alibaba has put on in the past, where you're seeing, things come down the catwalk and, advertisements are popping up to purchase said things, but it's part of that experience. It doesn't feel like you're being served an ad. And Instagram arguably has done a good job of this. We're starting to see more of this in esports. We talked about last week and how now esports is becoming a huge spot for digital media, but also advertising in general, where it's just a part of the game, right? That brand recognition is there. And so I think that's a great point. And Marcos, I want to bring it to you is, on this trail with your work in the beauty industry, but also in Asia and the US and some of the other things that you've done, what more are you seeing? I know there's a lot of efforts being done in Asia, specifically in China, around the future of advertising. As I mentioned, the catwalk with Alibaba and their Singles Day and some of the things that they do in November every year, November 11th for those 11/11 for those that may not be aware of it, but also having connected mirrors with experiences where you're looking in the mirror, fixing your hair, and all of a sudden an ad pops up for makeup, and it's really just allowing you to try different makeups on virtually before, but really that's an ad. So what else may you be seeing in these spaces from the beauty side, or again your work in Asia?
I think that China, the one sentence to say is that they are at the forefront on everything that we're talking about here, right? That's pretty much how I see China. The speed of innovation, the pace of differentiation and adaptation on everything that's happening there in digital media is really without precedent when you compare to every other place, right? I think that despite of the advancements that we see in many other places, like the West Coast here in the US, in some other Israel, other places that are also good benchmarks. But I think that, looking at the whole ecosystem there, China is really apart. That's my perception. But I'm sorry. The way I like to look at these changes that have been happening in the last decade is really with three opinions here, three perceptions. The first one is that, just simplifying the digital media industry, this is pretty much a very old business, right? It's selling and consuming people's attention, right? That's something as old as humanity, I would say. While, decades ago, people would be consuming radio, it evolved to TV and so on, right? Today, we're talking about VR, augmented reality, games, networking platforms, social media, you name it, right? It's really just expanding. And on this first impression, what I see is that it is what happens fundamentally in every other industry. I like to do the parallel of a giant elephant and a small dog, right? All of them, they have their places, but the speed they can run and react to things is very different, right? As Dan was mentioning there, while some years ago, there was an important role that Facebook, Google, they all were playing there on massificating all this new industry that was surging. Today, they're already a dominant player, right? But they're now the new elephants, right? So talking about new trends, new aspects, small niche solutions will always have a place for disruption if done correctly, right? That would be the first impression that I have. The second one that I would say is that when you look at the ecosystem and everybody that benefits or is impacted by that, you're going to have the investors when you're differentiating digital media versus the ad tech. You're going to have the advertising and the consumers as well, right? So these things actually benefit a lot from the small dogs that are coming to the game, right? And the last one that I would mention is just the consequence of this for companies, be that an investor that's trying to capture the good trends, advertisers as operating partners like we are as well, and for consumers, is that I think that there are two main dimensions of changes that are happening now. The first one is really just the evolution of all the existing channels. So it's very hard for you to stay focused or to keep trusting how the dynamics of any of these platforms work on a monthly basis, because they are always evolving, always changing. So the pace of change on that, technically speaking, is highly demanding. So it's upping the game. The second one is the surge of these new niches, new players, or just new competitors as well. Like we can name a very big one that's coming out to the West and it's coming like a hurricane, which is TikTok, right? Came from Asia, became a huge success, and is really, I would say, changing the balance of power here. But the same way that this is happening, many new other platforms, be that in gaming, VR, AR, whatever it is, it's something that you also need to constantly adapt. So my wrap up, in my opinion here, is that any player involved in this industry needs at the foundation to have capabilities of not only knowing that deep enough, but also to be very fast on adapting, learning, and building new skills on this game. Because one thing is for sure, right? The change pace only increases from now, right? So that's my take on it.
Absolutely. And even Snapchat too, right? Just to mention, because things are changing with TikTok, but also Snapchat too. You saw a huge migration very quickly there, and a lot has changed even dramatically on that platform as AR starts to get introduced in that world as well. And Gary, to you, from the artificial intelligence side, but just generally big picture, what are you seeing really change in this space, and where are you looking at opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, so, one of the things that we're forgetting is that it's unprecedented that so many people are home at this point in time, and there's so many eyeballs on the screen all the time. This is like an unprecedented opportunity for advertising. And in fact, yesterday, Marcos brought it up that, in terms of the China, I think it was Marcos about the Chinese. And yesterday I was on the judge of a group out of Hong Kong, and other Chinese startups. And one of the things I saw was incredible is a technology where they actually took a Hershey bar and inserted it into somebody's video. I've never seen it. I mean, like they took product placement and put it in your video, right? Like instantly. And I've never seen anything like that. So one of the things that I see from an AI perspective is that, imagine if you're doing a product today, but imagine that product following you around, even more personalized than we have had it done before. Not just presented, but integrated. So I think that when we start to look at it, this one-to-one marketing is really going to start coming out more and more as we go forward. So this is an unprecedented opportunity. And the other side, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So we're setting the stage for the future. Remember, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But if you don't go down and respond to this great opportunity that's out there now and start to migrate towards it, you're going to be out, right? We're going to be on the outside looking in. So it's, as I said, AI is the new electricity, but this advertising space is just, it offers the greatest opportunity I've ever seen because we're forced to be online all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many, it would be interesting to see how much more time is spent online now compared to 6 months ago. I bet it's probably 30, 40% more time online.
Well, and in so many different mediums, to Marco's point, right? I mean, I've turned off the notification. I don't want to know how long I'm online for at this point.
Right.
I don't need Apple reminding me. But to Marco's point, the devices have changed. The mediums have changed so dramatically. So it's not just going to the website. It's not just going to social media. It's not just picking up the app. You've got, multiple forms of streaming. You've got multiple devices. You have, new mediums of gaming to streaming, to content, to VCTV, shameless plug, to everything else in between. And you have us, with my shameless plug, you have us who are also now communicating in formats like this, where we are able to do a different level of advertising. That is something to note, that we as now individuals can be this bigger advertisement platform when we traditionally haven't. And there are sites that have started popping up, things like Cameo and the like, TikTok, Snapchat, Triller, and others that have been mentioned before on the episodes that do this and bring us as individuals, which many refer to as influencers, but we're now all influencers. We can all now talk about this. And so Noble and Dan, I want to come to you first. Are you seeing this growth of kind of influencer marketing, I'll call it? There's probably no better way. It's just, this is going to be an explosion. And if anything, it's going to be huge compared to what it was in the past, because we're all influencers, right? We all have an audience. Why not market everything and anything? Put something in someone's hands and see what happens. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. Yeah. I think so. And it's because at its foundation, what's happened is there's so much splintering of media opportunities. Consumers have to have some signals, some cues of who to pay attention to and what to pay attention to. More so, right? What to pay attention to, and then they do that by who it is. That's the influencer, right? So, again, going way back from 3 broadcast channels to then 500 cable channels to now infinite, right? There's just so infinite media opportunities that it's so diffused that the influencers are the signaling for consumers of who to pay attention to. And it's similar in some brands can do that too. I mean, Nike, such a strong brand, Coke, others are promoting other things because people pay attention to them. So you see it, and in the investment I just made an upshow, whether it's a company brand has attention and legitimacy, and then they can then use that in other ways. I mean, look at Amazon. Amazon is the 3rd largest company in terms of advertising revenue in the industry today, behind only Google and Facebook. And they've got, because it's when people are researching things and you can put ads up for things so consumers have to have signals that they are attracted to, whether it's, Beyonce or, the latest TikTok sensation or to Nike. They're looking for things to give to connote relevancy to them.
Mm-hmm. And I think that goes back to that idea of context too, right? We're starting to learn a little bit as consumers what we want when we want it, but also like to be told in some cases we need something when we don't necessarily know we need it as well. And that's kind of been an interesting little use case we've seen. But I want to quickly pause here for just a moment, then we're going to switch gears here in the second half of the show around the investment opportunities and where you guys are seeing investments and thinking about that. But Andrew is here as one of our startups on the show to pitch us, but then also share with the entire audience what he's building. And so Andrew, if you're ready, you've got 5 minutes on the clock. And so investors, each of us are going to listen in on Andrew's pitch here for 5 minutes. We'll give him some quick feedback afterwards, and then we'll get to the second half of the show before we get to closing thoughts. And so with that being said, Andrew, The clock is yours. The time has started. You've got 5 minutes and go.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Antar, and I'm the founder of Tune.fm. And so Tune.fm is essentially a music streaming platform with an integrated cryptocurrency that we created on a proprietary new token protocol that facilitates micropayments between creators and consumers, so the artists and listeners, in a marketplace, which is essentially a music economy for fans as well as artists. So the existing music market has actually been growing significantly in the last few years after falling for a few decades when Napster sort of disrupted the download model. But now that streaming is taking off, the market size is around 20 billion, but there's still a lot of gatekeepers and barriers to entry. There's a lot of old sort of legal frameworks for licensing, and publishers and labels essentially squeeze the artist so they get less than half a penny per play, which is around 10% of the actual publishing revenue that streaming platforms actually pay the publishers. And in many cases, these artists are not paid in sometimes over a year. So the model is essentially broken. And especially now with COVID and everything, where a lot of listening habits are just streaming and there's no live music revenue, artists are really sort of suffering in a way that they can't get the revenue from streaming that they would otherwise like to, that they deserve. So we've sort of created a new business model around streaming where for every second of streaming, the artist gets paid in micropayments. So when the music gets played, the artist gets paid. And it's all now possible with this token that we created that facilitates micropayments. So essentially our mission is to democratize music for all by leveling the playing field and enable any artists to access the platform and earn through others streaming their music. So we're sort of cutting out the middleman and enabling artists to earn a living where they control their rights. And we currently have over 5,000 artists all around the world. And so what we did was we built a music discovery platform, which is essentially a social network layer where artists can go direct to fan. And we've algorithmically sorted the music based on people's interests and what they're listening to and what other people like within different time periods. And we only accept lossless masters. So we've built a lot of technology around dealing with the masters and really high fidelity streaming. So it's the highest quality. And so we built the Jam token. We searched a lot of different blockchain platforms and a lot of different distributed ledger technology and settled on Hedera Hashgraph as the most secure distributed public ledger that would enable us to actually build our own token. And so it's a directed acyclic graph. So it's different from a blockchain, but it is a cryptocurrency distributed ledger. And we're the first to actually build a new token protocol on top of Hashgraph. So similar to what ERC20 is for Ethereum, we built our own proprietary token protocol on top of Hedera, and we were able to deploy the first token running on Hedera to mainnet. So essentially, this is creating an ecosystem for decentralized micropayments, and we're the only token that's integrated into a dApp that's running on Hedera Hashgraph, which enables micropayments since the fee structure is way lower than Ethereum or Bitcoin. So we can be sending fractions of a penny around for every second. And there's lightning fast throughput as well as a governance council. And security, which is consensus finality versus a probabilistic consensus. So we presented at their conference in Hedera 18, and we actually got 100,000 from a Hong Kong-based accelerator called Helix for applications building on Hashgraph specifically. And so we graduated from that accelerator program when we actually launched this new token onto mainnet. So I wanted to just briefly talk about how the flow of value works, since it's not a traditional one-size-fits-all subscription model where you're paying $20 a month. Instead, you get tokens for signing up, and you can earn tokens for doing things like reviewing music. But also, as you stream music, those tokens are streaming directly into the artist's wallets. But artists are always trying to promote their music. And in a way, this is really an advertising platform where the creative is actually the music itself. So artists can promote their music to first-time listeners. So that first stream, that discovery stream, is really more valuable to the artist because that listener hasn't discovered that artist yet. So in many ways, the way musicians and artists like to put their music on the radio so people discover it, this is a way where artists can actually use their jam tokens that they earned to promote their music and pay out to first-time listeners. So on the other side of that, if you're a fan willing to listen to new music and discover new music, you can actually get paid in jam tokens to actually listen to new music. And then when you play that music again, you're paying back to the artist. Or when you're streaming music that you are already familiar with, you're paying out to the artist. So when the artist invests jam in promoting their music, they can basically have a return on their ad spend if that music is really good, and the person actually listens to the whole song and starts to tell other people about it. So we also have a lot of gamification where both artists and fans can earn tokens for doing things that benefit the ecosystem at large, like whether it's uploading music or writing reviews or curating music on the platform. So all these micro incentives are only possible with our own integrated token, which can handle micropayments and not have to hit a credit card processor for 3% and 30 cents every single time we do a transaction. So the idea is many transactions are happening all the time.
And
so
Andrew, Andrew, I'm going to give you an extra 30. You're already over time. I'm going to give you an extra 30 seconds to wrap up. All right.
I'll go real quick. So we created a proof of stream audio protocol, which validates that the music is streamed. We also have a fiat on-ramp and off-ramp. And we also developed managed wallets with private key custody, which is some key parts of the technology. And here's a screenshot, or one of the older screenshots of the Jam token wallet that's on Hedera. And you can see that for every listen, payments are streaming directly into the wallet. So here's the team. But more importantly, we have a really strong advisory board with Matthew Knowles, who's Beyonce's father, who started Music World Entertainment. We did a deal with them to upload and serve the entire catalog of over 4,000 songs, including Beyonce instrumentals, as well as the top Hong Kong artists and other cryptocurrency influencers.
Andrew, I've given you. Sorry, buddy. We're at time. Yeah. All right, cool. Sorry, we gave you 2 extra minutes. So thank you for taking the time though to pitch. We do appreciate it. I know it does take a lot to get up, whether it's live on stage or even here broadcasting to not just us as investors, but to a live audience around the world. So thank you for taking the time to do so. But I want to make sure you get feedback from all of our investors. So with that being said, Dan, let's kick it off with you. Any feedback or thoughts for Andrew here as we go around for that part of the session?
I'll make it super quick, given the time. I have to preface it by saying this isn't necessarily my area of expertise, so I may be off a little bit on it. But the what goes through my head as I hear this is yes, I get how it's better for some parts of the ecosystem. Who are the losers in the ecosystem, and what's their ability to do competitive response? Because there will be, in any innovation, there's always a competitive response. It might not be direct, head on, or immediately obvious, but there will be. So because there's winners and losers in every innovation, and me as an investor has to think about who is losing in this, how powerful are they, and can they eventually block it or slow it down enough or co-opt it in some way? That would be my analysis.
Yeah. Sorry, Andrew, we're almost at time, so I apologize. I'm gonna have to go through everyone to get you feedback, and then we'll have to have you follow up with everybody. So again, I apologize. Noble, to you, any feedback or questions for Andrew here?
Yeah, this is my personal portfolio. I buy nothing but music royalties, and I publisher rights and artist rights. I've been doing that for almost 20 years. So one of the things that I'm curious about is, it's great to pay unknown artists directly. And I understand, because I've talked to Matthew Knowles before. I talked to Mr. Knowles in the past about buying the catalog. It's interesting to talk about having all that catalog, but there's still an ASCAP and a BMI component to any streaming, regardless of customers paying directly. So how are you going to mitigate that component where you still be responsible? for that type of streaming, regardless of you guys paying out tokens or not. So I'm definitely curious to learn a little bit more how you're going to handle CSAC, ASCAP, and BMI. And these are the people that Daniel's talking about who are fully entrenched in the system the way it is now.
And Gary, to you, any feedback or questions for Andrew? And Andrew, again, we're all available for follow-up, but we do have a hard stop here in just a few minutes. So I want to make sure you get the feedback again.
Yeah,
Gary?
so I mean, it's interesting from my perspective, but they're the same questions, right? Who is going to get paid? Are they going to try to block it? I mean, it's, that's what I would be concerned about. Are they going to try to, stop this thing before it gets started, or are they buying off into it and think it's great? And I don't know about the BMI and all the different groups that need to be involved, but I'm sure, Beyonce is not going to be taking payments directly. Probably it's got to go through some, type of structure, and I'm not sure what that is. But that's what I would look at. But it's interesting. It's going to happen that these systems get streamlined. It's going to happen that it goes a lot faster, and you're right on the front end. But what I caution is just be careful, because people will set up roadblocks for you.
Mm-hmm. And it traditionally happens in the music and entertainment industry more often than not, unfortunately. But Marcos, to you, any feedback or questions for Andrew as we come to wrap here?
I think the positive feedback is that, this model of proportional delivery and direct payment to musicians and artists, I think it's a great idea. It might be that the opportunity here needs to pivot towards specifically independent artists because of the points I already raised here, right? But the question I have that wasn't so clear to me, that might be a point for fine tuning, is that how you package the value to consumers, right? Is that going to be a pay-per-view type of model? Is it going to be a subscription base that you have like a Netflix fee, and then you can, unlimitedly stream whatever you want and so on? That would be the point that I'd like to see more clarity on.
Absolutely. So Andrew, thank you again. And I will also add to this further validation that you're on the right path. And to Marco's point, working with the independent artists and growing up to the bigger ones is a great way, or working with the labels directly and getting them on your side, because to Dan, Noble, and Gary's points, they will all try to find a way to interject in potentially the wrong way, but they're all looking for extra distribution. So there's a great opportunity here, and you are, to Gary's point, on the forefront in a good way, not first leading, but you're in the right wave of this. And there's huge advertising opportunities within this as well. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it on today's episode around podcasting and audio in general, as that's starting to take off even bigger than it was a year ago. So Andrew, again, thank you very much. And where can everyone find you very quickly online if they want to connect and then also see more about the company?
Yeah, so the product is Tune.fm, and my email is Andrew@Tune.fm, and the company's Hero.fm. I also have Andrew Antar, Hero.fm. And briefly, we're working with both independent and the label artists. So whatever labels, artists, agreements that they have are still in force. So when we work with someone like Matthew Knowles, those royalties are paid out with the existing agreements that they have, but independent artists can come directly to us, and we have our own hybrid license that deals with the streaming and publishing. And it's a pay-as-you-go model as well. So really, you're paying for every second automatically.
Got it. Wonderful. Thank you again, Andrew. Everyone, make sure you do check out Andrew online. We're sorry we don't have more time to go into it, but definitely check him out. Check out the service, and also reach out to Andrew if you want to learn more. Gentlemen, as we come to wraps here, and I apologize as we're coming to the top of the hour, but we're running over, so I want to make sure you each get your closing thoughts in and where everyone can find you. Marcos, let's start with you. Quick closing thoughts on the subject, and then where can everyone find you online?
So the thing I would say to Andrew is really don't stop. You're going to see barriers, just find your way through that. I think it's very important, this type of discussion as well, as the experience between the different players in the industry can add up expertise and help you to solve those issues, right? And about us, you can find Virtual Equity Partners on Virtual Equity, so VIRTU equity.com.
Wonderful. And again, thank you, Marcos, for joining. Noble, to you, where can everyone find you? Quick closing thoughts.
I think this whole idea of ad tech and digital space is just key. It's really where we're all going towards anyway. So it's easy to find me, just type in my name, Noble Dracone, on LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, it's just @Dracone, my last name. And we're always open for new projects, people to be a part of our accelerators, as well as consulting to help people find the capital they need. So just reach out to me.
Wonderful. Andrew, Noble, you now know each other, connect. All right, Gary, to you, closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
Sure. Yeah. Gary Fowler. So GSD Venture Studios. We curate AI companies primarily and take them to the next levels, growth stage, and also do investing. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler on LinkedIn. And Daniel, I have a hyper growth ad tech company that I want to talk to you about. So put your email in chat and I'll send you something over. I think you'll like it. So go out there and get them. It's a time for personalization. People are looking at their eyeballs on the screens. Take advantage of it. Good luck and stay safe.
And get shit done. Dan, to you. Last closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, 4490ventures.com. You can find me there on LinkedIn. Easy to find. My last name is not too common. And DM my initials at 4490ventures.com. Yeah, always open, interesting, and just oftentimes for the founders out there. You probably hear this a lot. It's one thing to reach out to guys like me. It's another thing if one of your investors does it. It's just another level of vetting. So just like like what Gary said there, it just pops a little higher in the inbox and on the priority list. So if you can get an investor to reach out, always open to founders, but it's just harder to keep track of all those. So
goes to add of warm introductions, the value of warm introductions or mutual connected introductions. So founders out there, if you are connected and want to get connected or to a new investor or to someone in general, go through those channels first, but don't be hesitant to cold reach out as well. You never know what's going to come of it, whether it be on social media, whether it be on email. Both we're going to talk about more tomorrow here on VCTV. Thank you, Dan, for the teaser. But do reach out nonetheless. This is a great opportunity, as Gary said, and Noble and Marcos. More eyeballs, more attention, more people connected than ever. Don't be afraid to reach out and connect and share and build those relationships over time with people. Go ahead, Gary.
And get shit done.
And get shit done. Everybody, I'm Kyle Lacotte, your host. A big thank you. If you like what you heard on today's episode, give us a thumbs up, click subscribe. Thank you, Maria, to the entire LA Token team. Thank you, investors. Again, thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing what you've built. And we'll be back here tomorrow for another edition of VCTV. I'm Kyle Lacotte. You can find me and everyone else online. Take care, everybody.